So, inspiring journey of Narayanan Krishnan. The true purpose of life, is to serve humanity. From five-star chef, to companion, to her compassionate, crusader. Narayanan Krishnan here, 1981, was on the cusp of extraordinary culinary career, right, as an here award-winning chef, with Taj hotels in Bangalore. He had been shortlisted for prestigious positions in here Switzerland, right, a dream realized by a few, but here the destiny had others plan. Here the moment that changed everything in 2002, while en route to a obviously temple in Madurai, right. So here Narayanan witnessed a heartbreaking scene, and here elderly man driven by her desperation, eating his own waste under a bridge, right. So that instant of raw human suffering pierces obviously him so deeply, that within a week here he handed in his resignation. He returned home and obviously vowed to here dedicated his life to serving those society has abandoned, right. So founding the Akshaya Trust, right, in 2003, here Narayanan launched the Akshaya Trust, a non-profit in Madurai focused on feeding and caring for the homeless and mentally disabled, right. So what began as here one-man mission, soon became a lifeline for hundreds in need. Daily operation, sustaining dignity, one meal at a time. Wake up call at 4 a.m. loading a donated van, for 125 mile ride. Daily routines through Madurai's underpasses, temple, courtyards, and obviously lands, right. Here preparing simple, nutritious, obviously vegetarian meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner by hand serving, and obviously often personally hand feeding nearly 400 clients each day, right. Adding here final touch of dignity here, combs, scissors, razors in tow, right. So Narayanan had his team his haircuts and shapes obviously here in 8 styles, restoring obviously self-respect to those long forgotten, right. So building a century here, building a century beyond food. Over the years, Akshaya Trust here evolved into more than a mobile kitchen. Narayanan here oversaw the creations of small residential facilities, right. So here past hospice, here the part hospice, part clinic, right. So where mentally disabled and here destitute, right, elders receive round the clock care, medical attention and clean living quarters, right. Tough, modest, and this home functions as a hospital in its ethos, healing body, mind, and obviously spirit. So funding through sacrifice, your daily operation cost roughly 27,000 rupees, that we call $325 USD, right. Sponsors cover here only about 22 days each month, right. The gap is filled by Narayanan's own resources, right. Here he subsists on obviously 7,000 rupees, right, that we call 88 USD, right. So here monthly rent from a home his grandfather left him, and sleeps in the trust modest kitchen alongside volunteers. Since 2002, he is taking no salary, investing here every penny into his mission. Recognition and ripple effects. In 2010, CNN Heroes, right, named his one of its top 10 global heroes, right, shining an international spotlight on Madurai's hidden struggles. Documentaries, features, film, etc. The character in Ustad Hotel, right, and media features have had here inspired countless individuals to volunteer, donate, and or simply re-examine their own capacity for obviously kindness, right. So the moral lesson for a lifetime is what here compassion in action here. Witness suffering and let it move you, right. Empathy only becomes transformative when paired with courageous action, right. So consistency beats grand gestures. Daily dedication, rain and shine, heat or cold, obviously multiplies into profound lasting impact. Dignity as universal right here, nourish not only the body but the spirit. A simple haircut, a warm smile, a gentle word can speak louder than grand charities. Sacrifice and ownership here. True service often demands personal sacrifice, right, whether of the time, comfort, and resources. Sustainability through creativity. When funds fall short, innovative models here, community kitchens, sponsored meals, rent sharing here, bridge gaps, and keep the mission alive, right. So integrating these lessons into your life. Start local, identify one underserved group in your neighborhood, right? Obviously commit to a weekly act of service, right? So meal prep, tutoring, companionship, right? Build rituals, pick a regular time, etc. Here, like example, Saturday mornings, and stick to it. Rituals breed consistency. Mobilize your skills. Narayanan used cooking and grooming, right? You might often language, lessons, legal advice, and simply a listen here, right? Here, champion small wins, right? A single life you're served today, seeds hope, the expectation that we call the anticipation. Celebrate each story of transformation. Invest in a cause, whether your own time or a small financial gifts. Consider a sustainable model like here crowdfunding, a monthly meal plan. Long-term visions here, becoming a lifelong change maker. Set milestones. Year 1, serve 100 meals. Year 3, expand to a community kitchen, right? Year 5, establish a care center, right? Collaborate here, partner with schools, local businesses or religious institution for here resources and volunteers, right? So here document and share. So like Narayanan's CNN features, your story can inspire thousands, right? Use blogs, right, that we call blogs here, social media and local here praise, right? So here reflect and recalibrate. Monthly check-ins on impact here, finances, volunteer well-being, and obviously beneficiary feedback. Ensure you stay aligned with your mission, right? So what's the next here plan? Obviously a volunteer blueprint, a step-by-step guide to launch a 10 people pop-up kitchen in your community. So storytelling workshop is what craft narrative that move hearts and open wallets, right? Tips from media features on Narayanan's, right? Here next point is what self-care for givers, right? So here practices to sustain your passion and prevent burnout over decades of services, right? Here the next point is what the inner spark, origin of his calling, right? Detail the exact moments of moral shock, describe the strange, obviously the shriek on a passing bus, the dazzled eyes of that old man, contract Narayanan's opulent, right? 5 stars world, gleaming marble, silver cutlery, right? With the fifth and obviously despair under Madurai's bridges, right? Emphasize his visceral, right? Almost here spiritual rupture, right? That singular moment when comfort became a cage. Next point is what the psychology of compassion. Unpack how witnessing extreme suffering rewires the brain. Mirror neuron activation, radical empathy. Okay, fine. So here stress the courage it takes to move from empathy to action. Those who freeze in compassion's grief versus those who live, right? Introduce obviously here cognitive behavioral insights, how deliberate exposure to difficult sites can build emotional resilience. Obviously here servant leadership in practices here, chart Narayanan's leadership style, radical humility, shunning hierarchy, sleeping on the kitchen floor alongside volunteers. Show how he inspires volunteers through story and not policy memos. Morning hurdles, brimming with raw testimonials. Highlight his open door, ethos. Beneficiaries can ring his personal phone at any hour, right? Dissolving any us versus them. The kitchen as a classroom here, describe the ritual of chopping vegetables at 4 a.m. as a form of moving meditation, I mean to say. Okay, so illustrate menus scientifically, right? Breakfast of porridge fortified with local millets. Okay, lunches spiced with iron rich leaf vegetables, dinners balancing protein and fiber, right? So explore zero waste tactics, leftover compost for community gardens, obviously rice husk as ash, rice husk ash as natural disinfectant. Okay, so holistic healthcare and dignity protocols beyond simple meals, detail on site dental cleaning, physiotherapy mats, hair and nail right care for self-respect. Introduce partnering with psychiatrists and social workers for weekly mental health clinics, right? Obviously show dignity packs, fresh hair undergarments, razor sharp shaving kits, razor sharp shaving kits, right? A gentle soap is what here, small things that roar with respect. Data driven impact and storytelling. Lay out how here Akshaya Trust tracks KPIs, right? A number of patients transitioned right here from obviously straight to shelter, right? Replace just relapse rates, volunteer retention, explain, use simple CRM tools to map Madurai's homeless clusters, enduring no one falls through cracks. Describe monthly impact, broadcast on local radio, poignant before and after stories woven into Tamil wallets, right? Financial, alchemy, funding that never sleeps, right? So here, paint a picture of Narayanan negotiating, CSR grants over chai. Okay, so here pursuing, local sweet shops, honors to sponsor meals. Detail a miniature, social enterprise, hand stitched aprons, obviously sold online to here underwrite a week of hospices cares, right? So here chronicle his monthly rituals of tailing receipts by candlelight, treating every rupees as a sacred trust. So volunteer here, ecosystem and culture, sketch the volunteer initiation or day long empathy or boot camp that introduces blindfolded food service to here stimulate disorientations. Here show monthly potlucks, right, where volunteers share personal breakthroughs. Okay, here transforming helpers into a family. Address burnout here peer led supports circles, half day retreats by the Beggar rivers, guided journaling sessions, community mobilizations, policy advocacy. Show Narayanan lobbying the city panchayat for legal shelters or prison for mental health helplines in sensor data. Describe release he leads, right? Beneficiaries waving placard, we too are human, volunteers chanting slogans of dignity, include here alliances with law students here drafting pro bono petitions to here discriminalize homelessness, right? Media myth making and global ripples. Here chronicle the CNN Heroes episode, how a single TV frame of Narayanan hand feeding and Alzheimer's patient became a viral moral symbols, right? So here dive into the ripples effect here, small NGOs in Uganda and Brazil writing him for blueprints, students at Harvard plagiarizing with her admiration his model map here how his story he retold in local dance dramas, like TEDx talks and obviously illustrated graphics novels for the school kids. Okay, spiritual and philosophical underpinnings here situate his work in Vedantic tenets, Atman in every being, selfless action here, Nishkama Karma, without thirst for fruit, right? Contrast this with secular humanism, how unconditional love can please religious drives in multi faith India, weave in Sufi poetry of Gandhi's will of service to show this impulse is truly universal, right? So scaling up from Madurai to movement, blueprint for replication, step-by-step manuals here, voluntary leadership here, certification Akshaya in a box. Okay, starter kits, describe digital tools, mobile apps for street teams to log new finds, GIS map share with municipal bodies, forecast future networks of 50 mini hospices across Tamil Nadu by 2030, each run by an alumnus of Narayanan's volunteer program. Okay, so here ethical compass and governance. So lay out his zero tolerance for corruptions. So quarterly audits published online here, open kitchen days where donors see every rituals, right? Show how he formed an advisory, right, board here, lawyers, doctors and ex bureaucrats, right, to maintain checks and balance here. Reflect on the moral challenge here of a moral challenge that we called is here accepting corporate funds, drawing lines here between genuine support and here greenwashed optics, right? So personal sacrifice and daily rituals here, chronicle his simple diet, 2 chapatis and sambar. Okay, a mug of sweet tea here, luxuries he obviously forgoes for others here. Detailed his nightly solitude, right? So silent prayer readings, letters from beneficiaries, a whispered quit renewal. So here show how he manages health scares and ulcer flare or back pain, right, with yoga stretches on the kitchen floor. So lesson for a lifetime, elaborated here, that moral imagination. Train yourself to see the unseen, sufferer on your street. Action over intention, right, grand visions die without daily rituals. Your dignity at every scale here, a sprig, right, of coriander, a whispered please, and here invitation, to sit at the table. Adaptive, creativity here, when funding, dips, pivot here, pop-up stalls, right, home delivery meals, community supported agriculture. Legacy of love, true impact isn't a building, it's the culture you see in hearts, right? So here, the point is, by layering in this dimension of psychological depth and data rigor, spiritual resonance, right, okay, here governance, clarity, and a splash of dramatic flair, you will transform Narayanan Krishnan's journey from a lone chef's epiphany into a multi-layer epic of human possibility. So each point can be stretched into its own chapter, its own case study, its own manifesto for living a life for service. So yeah.